stole from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle, the ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Hello, good morning, and it's a big delight to have you join us here this morning. I'm Uyag Mofwebi. I'd like to especially welcome you to today's edition of Global Morning, Sunday Special, I should call it. Again, it's good to know that you're joining us today, particularly for those who have not left for church just yet, or you're not going to church today, maybe because you're streaming from home and all of that. But across board, home and abroad, we'll say a big thank you to all of our viewers spending time with us this morning. It's a compact edition of the program. That means it's just going to run for an hour, but we do appreciate the fact that you're joining us to be part of this. This week, the one that was, again, brought its own peculiarities in terms of the announcements and all of the developments across the country and all of that, but I hope you were able to make the most of it individually, on your end, because no matter the challenges Nigerians have, the penchant to always surmount obstacles. Hopefully you did that, and sure your week also turned out at its best in such a way that even if you didn't accomplish all the goals that you had set out, but at least you were able to record some appreciable accomplishments in different areas. For me, it was more of work and all of that, but good thing is we're here this morning. The week, that is the new one, has just started, even though it's Sunday, so let's also make sure that we make the most of all of these. Some of the big highlights from last week were the confirmation of ministerial appointments, those who had been, whose names had been sent to the National Assembly for screening. We understand they've all now been screened. The only challenge was a senator had raised the concern around the need for portfolios to be attached to ministerial nominees. So we can move away from this culture of sending a bunch of men and women to the Senate for screening, and in the end we're not even certain as to who is going to get what appointments. In other words, who is going to man which ministry and in what capacity in most cases. All right, so the conversation now is at the point where we're saying, can we not have you send ministers, all right, to the Senate? Nominees to the Senate, ministerial nominees, that is. And then we already know that you're nominating this person to be Minister of Defense, Minister of Works and Housing, or Works, Minister of Housing, Minister of Labor and Employment, and things like that, as against the culture where we bring these people to the Senate, we screen them, they go back, and the president now at that point determine what role is going to assign them to. So that is a concern, because if somebody has had, for example, a track record in banking and finance, let's say the financial sector overall, maybe they've been there 20, 25, 30 years, and now they're nominated to come to the Senate to be screened for ministerial appointments. Off the top of your head, you would expect that this person will eventually be maybe Minister of Finance, whether states or the senior ministers they are called, all right, but that's not always the case. It just turns out to be a case that such a person comes to the Senate, gets screened, and is approved, and the next thing you know is the president makes that person, maybe Minister of Special Duties, maybe Minister of something else, far-flung from that person's area of expertise, where they have built capacity, competence, and acquired skill for 2, 3, sometimes even 4 decades, for example. So that can be very concerning. Maybe we can now move away from that culture and be more specific with regards to the portfolios that we assigned ministerial nominees. So that's where we are with that conversation. But above and over all of that, it is also now clear that we are no longer where we used to be with regards to the cabinet structure of President Bola Tinubu, given the fact that this rejigging, whether you call it, you're looking at it from the angle of him sending some ministers away or redeploying others. The point is that some sort of new energy has now been brought into the cabinet, and we hope that energy will not just reside and end at Aso Rock and within the corridors of politics, but that it will find manifestation in the quality of leadership that is provided in such a way that ultimately Nigerians will benefit from that. And then there's this story which Queen Agaba, my colleague, and I also talked about here very extensively on Friday, about a young girl, 16 years, we're told is her age, from Edo State, somewhere in the northern part of the state, all right, so, who is now being alleged to have poisoned her ex-boyfriend, who was 19, and 4 of his friends, no thanks to the pepper soup that she has served them. And we're told that it was after they ate that they all died. In fact, they were confirmed dead by the time some of them were taken to the hospital for possible treatment. Now, as chaotic as that sounds, it has already raised concerns across social media and even beyond because of the complexity involved or associated with this particular matter. 5 lives. We are told, by the way, that 2 of those persons are siblings, all right, born of same parents. So 5 lives have been lost, 2 of them being siblings, all right, born of same dad, same mom. Interestingly, we understand that the young girl, 16, has now been arrested. She's in the custody of the police. You know, I spoke with some people during the week and they say, well, she's going to spend the rest of her life in jail, particularly if she's convicted and blah, 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 blah. Of course, as far as the law goes, if she's convicted by a court of law, that is how it should be. However, you don't have to worry yourself as to what exactly is the level of damage done to these families that have now been negatively impacted by what is allegedly the error of one person, the action of one person. Some persons have said, well, how do you accept food or drink from someone you once dated? Because we understand this young man, from what we read, Global Television did not independently take a step to verify the authenticity or otherwise of this story. However, from what we understand, the young man who was the, so to speak, beneficiary of this pepper soup, and then of course got to share with his friend, had broken ties with this young girl who, again, for want of better words, was his benefactor. And then he had started dating someone else, all right? So the logic some people are trying to find, those who are looking at the whole thing, those who are following the story, is how do you end your relationship with a girl and then she brings food? You not only accept and eat it, you share with your friends. And now all 5 persons are no more on account of this. But apparently events have overtaken all of that. No matter how much you try to find those answers, now these young men can't come back to speak up for themselves or what have you. But we understand the bodies have been deposited at the morgue and then autopsy will be done. And in the interim, the young girl is with the police, and we hope that justice is served, you know, for everybody involved, both for the young person who is now being accused of poisoning this gentleman and those who have passed, as well as, very importantly, for the families and everyone who cares about them. All right, but it's quite a pathetic thing to think about, because you are talking about the story. For example, you're almost feeling goosebumps popping all over your skin, but it's just part of the challenges that come with the times that we live in. Let's take a quick break, everyone. We have big headlines from national dailies today. We'll begin with the Sunday Independent for you. First of the big story here with a picture of President Bola Tinubu. It says, concern mounts over federal government's inability to contain public spending. Some riders here. Experts urge belt tightening measures in government circles. Wants government to enact Fiscal Responsibility Act. All of those details you would find on page 2 of today's, this week's issue of the Sunday Independent. But let's look at stories above the nameplate, beginning from the one on your top right corner. Has a picture of the Speaker of Lagos State House of Assembly, Honorable Obasa. Don't abolish LCDAs. CSOs caution Obasa, Lagos Assembly. Those details you will find again on page 7 of the Sunday Independent. And bad governance. Kako condemns detention, arraignment, inhuman treatment of detained minors. That's one issue that actually revved emotions on Friday after these young persons had been taken to courts. Then, of course, were told of the stringent conditions that the court had given for their bail, how that some were said to have passed out and all of that. But again, that has generated argument and debate back and forth. The police and the prosecuting lawyer speaking along same lines, saying that, look, these people are not as young as the members of the public are made to believe. In fact, there are some of them that are married, and then a particular, the police public relations officer, Mr. Muyiwa, says that, look, there's none of them there who is younger than 13. As a matter of fact, if you're 7 and above, you can be tried in courts, even though that is also subject to peculiarity of circumstances and what have you. But in all, I'm sure what every right-thinking Nigeria wants to see is that the law is followed stricto sensu in such a way that nobody is put at a disadvantage at the end of the day. Communal clash claims 8 lives, including 6 students in Benue State. So there's a sad story that has its details on page 6 of the Sunday Independent. A 12-day power outage, Kano lost over 500 billion naira. That is according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. On Friday, our correspondent Idris Jibrin took a look at some of these issues, and he did a report on that. However, it was very embarrassing, even beyond the pain that had been caused residents across these northern states. Let's not even mention businesses and how that their activities and operations have been hampered, all right, by this embarrassing 12-day outage across several states up north. But now we hear that power has been restored to virtually all the states, but we're still following to see what exactly the situation real-time on the ground is, if there are still communities that are in blackouts on account of this power outage. Authorities, particularly Transmission Company of Nigeria, that is TCN, have said that one of the challenges they have is insecurity, vandalism as well, all right? So you can't have vandalism and bandits and insurgents attacking very critical power infrastructure and not have this kind of situation. However, again, there are now calls, and those calls have never been so loud and vehement as to the need to decentralize our power infrastructure in this country. Then the need to, as it were, source alternatives to hydro. Nigeria has been on hydro for God knows how long. So at what point, given that this is 2024, are we going to look at, in ways that are very practical, the concept of energy mix, the concept of energy transition? Is it enough that Nigeria every year spends millions of dollars on these items? I mean, traveling abroad to attend COP this, COP that, energy this, energy that, all the summits and conferences across the world from one continent to another, and then we come back home. Nothing has changed. In business, they talk about return on investment. So if we have invested so much year in, year out, all right, attending some seminars, a wide range of events from continental America to Europe, Asia, Middle East, and even within Africa, what exactly are we getting back as a country by way of value? We must look at all of this. the countries in Africa, for example, whether it is Egypt or South Africa or Morocco or Algeria, what are they doing differently in terms of power? Why are they better than us? I mean, look at the ranking of African countries in terms of how they are faring in the area of power generation, transmission, and distribution. I mean, this is the value chain, end to end. Why is Nigeria not favorably ranked? The answer to that question, which I guess you know as much as I do, is enough to keep us up at night until we are able to find practical solutions to all of these problems. How is it that since 1999 till date, it has been one government after another, one political party after another, talking about how to fix light, what they will do to fix light. But how is it that 25 years down the line, the conversation has not moved a pin? It has been same old, same old. Up until today, we are still talking about how under the leadership of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, $16 billion had been said to have been spent on power, independent power projects here and there, and what have you. And Nigerians cannot say they've gotten value for that humongous amount of money, which is ordinarily supposed to be not just spending, but investments in the real sense of the word. But that hasn't been the case. In fact, last time the former president was asked about that issue, he said, look, you don't have to ask me or expect a response from me because I've addressed that issue in my book. And the logic in that, some people will argue, is that for you to know exactly how that money was spent or what happens to it, you've got to grab a copy of former President Olusegun Obasanjo's book. But is that how a country is or should be run? All right, these are issues that should agitate our minds. But just for the records, former President Olusegun Obasanjo was here as president, in this Fourth Republic between 1999 and 2007. So for someone who had left office a little over 17 years ago, how is it that we are still not finding closure as to how $16 billion was said to have been spent on power projects in this country at the time? So how much did you spend since the time I left office till today? We probably don't have statistics as to the specificity of the figure, but we all know from the information trickling in, whether it's from the National Bureau of Statistics, from the Ministry of Power itself, or even from the Ministry of Finance or the CBN, or the information we're getting from IMF and the World Bank, that it also runs into several billions of dollars as well. But the long and short of all of this, on the final note, is that Nigeria is in a very bad place as far as power is concerned. We're talking about the North now because we had this incessance of grid collapse, the power grid collapse, right? We had we had 3 in 5 days. We had 2 in 24 hours. As of today, Nigerians have not been given guarantees as to whether or not there's going to be a reoccurrence of this kind of nasty situation. 12 whole days for an entire region of a country to be in blackouts is not only about Kano State being a metropolitan commercial city losing 500 billion naira within that period, going by the information coming out from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. It is also about how shameful it is for a country. But whether or not we are going to convert that shame into finding solutions in ways that are practical remains to be seen. But let's look at a few more headlines for you from the Sunday Independent today. Just by the side, it says again, it's APC versus Nigerians in 2027, says Governor Makinde. Of course, the man has said if he's going to run for president, he's an adult enough to speak for himself. He won't have somebody speak for him. But again, he has talked about 2027 now, and he says it's going to be the ruling party, that is the All Progressives Congress, versus Nigerians in 2027. Edo condemns detention of Accountant General, 4 others by EFCC. The writer tells us, says officers detained to cripple government governors. Well, time will fail us to go into all of those details, but let's just see more headlines before we flip through to see a few other papers. Recent LG elections, red flag for council autonomy. That's according to stakeholders. The 2 writers say LG bosses will be stooges of governors. Suggest constitution amendment to enforce independence. That story incidentally has a picture of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu. At the fruits of the Sunday Independence Day, Federal Teaching Hospital, Lokoja, struggling with neglect. Read details of that story on page 3 of the Sunday Independent. All right, let's turn to the Leadership Sunday. That's our next port of call. The Leadership Sunday. Let's start with the headline that has a picture of the governor of Niger State, Governor Bago. Niger governor seeks removal of mining from exclusive list. Of course, as of today, mining, like other very critical resources, are in the exclusive list, which means that the federal government has exclusive oversight management of them. But the governor of Niger State now is saying that it should be removed. Maybe he wants it to move to the concurrent lists, all right? But I'm sure that is something that requires an act of parliament, which means it's an issue that has to go to the National Assembly for due process to be followed. End bad governance protest. Police obey AGF's order. Transfer suspects case file. Economic hardship. Foreign travel drops by 60% in Lagos, Abuja airports. What do you expect when some people are now saying that local flights fares were already inching towards 400,000? Right? People would just look for alternatives as quickly as possible. Yes, on the roads across the country, we can always have concerns about insecurity, about bad roads and what have you. But when people are faced with very tough options, in the end, they still have no choice than to pick one of those options and to make a choice. As they say, the options are in front of you, the choice is yours to make. So I think that's where we are with the issue of airfare. People don't travel by air much lately, I mean the last couple of weeks in particular, because they just do their math and then they check that against the economic realities that they're grappling with, and then they have to make that tough call. For example, if you were to fly from Abuja to say Asaba for 160,000, and you know you can join a bus, I mean going by road from Abuja, and you can do, let's say 50,000 for example, and you see the margin of 110,000 there. So you already realize that can take you to Asaba and back to Abuja, and you still have substantial amount of money in your hand and stuff like that. So people are having to now sit down to put in the work to do the plus and minus and ensure that they're putting their money where their mouth is. All right. Okay, more headlines coming through. Says economic hardship, foreign travel drops by 60% in Lagos, Abuja airports. The riders tell us passengers reduce holiday casual trips, of course. Airlines cut weekly frequencies to save costs. Experts blame decline on Naira devaluation, fare increase. CNG vehicles, we can't afford 1.5 million Naira conversion rates. That's according to motorists. The rider says no accredited centers in most states. So if I convert my vehicle from petrol, right, to CNG, and then it turns out in my city or state there isn't a refuel center. I mean, there's no designated points where I can refuel or get CNG. All right. Having converted my vehicle, what happens? Which means I didn't even need to convert my vehicle in the first instance. All right. So these are issues we need to deal with. The other day, the president was seen to have suggested that several of the filling stations in the country be converted to CNG hubs. But the question is, how feasible is that? Within what frame in terms of the length of time? All right. Is it short-term measure that I was proposing, or is it medium term, or is it long term? Besides, these fuel stations, will they still be able to serve that purpose, given that their original design was not for CNG, it was for premium motor spirit and AGO, that's diesel, all right? That's a kerosene and, of course, diesel as well. But the point in all of this is that we need to be ready for this sort of transition, because it's a bit radical, and as such, it also requires sweeping and bold, decisive actions to be able to drive these reforms. All right. And then here, let's see what more we can find. It says minimum wage, 9 states to pay workers above 70,000 Naira. Like my colleague and I were saying here the other day, paying them above the benchmark of 70,000 naira is a great thing. But beyond and above that, what is going to matter more going forward is that they are paid as and when due. In other words, you don't have to now stack up their salaries by way of backlog because you can't pay. So if we say it would be better essentially to pay 70,000 naira, and you do that in a manner that is timely, all right, as against paying them 73, 75. In fact, we have seen a state or two now paying between 80 and 83, for example, and then you are not able to pay them for 4 months, for 6 months, and then they go back to the street with placards, protesting and picketing government offices and all of that. It will be embarrassing and takes us back to even a place worse than where we're trying to live now. Okay, but this sounds a bit more encouraging than where we had been a while ago. All right, let's flip over from the Leadership Sunday now and take a look at the Punch. Yes, the Sunday Punch is where we are right now. Just before we take a break on the paper segment, let's take a look at some headlines from the Sunday Punch for you. Above the name mass first, Libya begins mass arrest of Nigerians after CAF verdict. Now, I almost hear some people say, well, we're not surprised, we saw this coming, but the Libyan authorities or those in Libya should know that this is an African affair, and if we are really brothers, we don't have to go to that length, because what happened was purely about soccer, it was about football, it was about doing the right thing, it was about standards. So if the Confederation of African Football, which is, in a manner of speaking, the governing body of football across Africa, all right, and they've taken a decision like this, I'm sure there are options for some sort of appeal that the Libyan Football Federation, the LFF, can also explore as against taking the laws into their hands by carrying out, as alleged now, arbitrary arrests, because we saw these xenophobic attacks that happened in South Africa a while ago. That was just a few years ago. It didn't turn out well. It further strained the relations between South Africa and Nigeria. These are two otherwise friendly countries. So the Libya doesn't want to go that path now with these verdicts by CAF. All right. What more do we have here? A story or a headline with a picture of the senior pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Enoch Adeboye. Says, why we are probing gay claims against youth pastors, RCCG. Then here it says, business that don't use AI risk extinction. Bimbo, businesses that don't use AI risk extinction. Well, AI is the way to go, even with all of the regulatory concerns around it. Okay, and then there's this one some Nigerians will say actually media day, media weekend. It says mixed feelings as British Nigerian woman emerges UK party leader. Something about Kemi Badnoch here. Of course, you know the story about how that she had been working tooth and nail to emerge the leader of the UK Labour Party. And we understand that now that has happened. So let's see what happens going forward. She has also been in the spotlight lately on account of some controversial remarks attributed to her, but maybe some people will say that behind us. Now that she has emerged the leader of this party, let's see what she can do to make a difference with the better, and blah 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 blah. Right, I lost 5 family members, 9 patients to building collapse. Or your native doctor, quite a sad story here. I lost 5 family members, 9 patients to building collapse. 15 million naira bribe claim. Bobrisky released on bail after denying voice notes. Okay, some of his fans probably are now saying finally. Treason. Attorney General considers dropping charges against hungry minors. And then the 2 writers tell us court may reconvene this week to review case. After outrage, lawyer raises question on 2 missing defendants. Read up those details on page 3 of the Sunday Punch newspaper. Inside Ogun community where nobody dares steal. Inside Ogun community where nobody dares steal. You will read that on page 29. My varsity education to satisfy my parents. Graduates, Momo trader my university education to satisfy my parents, graduate more traders. Well, as they say, the heart wants what it wants. So if somebody graduates and decides to go the way of selling pomo and they are successful, they feel accomplished, or they see a happy ending, and then they are not complaining, right? They find fulfillment, they enjoy it, they are passionate about it. Well, really, it's just a matter of balance. So your parents want a degree, you give it to them. Your heart wants to sell pomo, you go that way as well. Everybody goes home happy as long as it is legal, legitimate, brings value, and leaves you happier than you otherwise would have been. Okay, let's take a break, everyone. When we return, we'll look at some more headlines for you. Do stay with us. Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Let's turn to the Sunday Sun for you now. Above the nameplate with a picture of Dave Umahi, Minister of Works here. Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, Umahi stakeholders meet in Lagos today. And then we have a few extras here. It says Acting Chief of Army Staff Presidency dismisses lopsided Southwest Security appointments allegation, says all appointments based on merit. Tragedy strikes Lagos again as another council boss dies in office. Sanwo-Olu, others mourn. Quite a pathetic story. And this was a man who had actually succeeded his former principal, right? But now he has also died in office. Revealed how Nigeria's elections are rigged. Ndeche, ex-INEC Acting National Secretary Operations Director. The Judiciary INEC angles says Uwe's report can help solve problems. So why are we not dusting that report up and seeing what we can do with it? Reasons Nigeria has not made progress. That's according to political economist Professor Pat Utomi. Reasons Nigeria has not made progress. What are some of those key reasons? Find details on page 22 of the Sunday Sun. At 51, I'm no longer in my best shape, but still feel beautiful, confident. Jasmine Teller, face yoga consultant and model. I think that's a lifestyle read that will make a lot of sense this Sunday. But it takes us to the next paper, the Sunday Times. All right. On the front page of the Sunday Times, what do we have here? It says FG proposes 341 billion naira for emergency road bridge repairs. On the Sunday Times, you find those details on page 4. The Star story reads, EFCC cripples Edo government, arrest accountant general, others days to Obasaki's handover. 2 riders read, plans to hold arrested officials till November 12th. That's supposed to be the day for the formal handing over, or November 12th. So that means they'll be there for another 9 days. All right. Unconstitutional actions done to hinder operations. Edo State government response. How soaring domestic airfare is crippling local tourism. Small-scale weave-on business profiting in Nigeria's expanding beauty market. And bad governance. Arraignment of suspects in line with rule of law. Well, that's the police position on this issue. Week of rage. Troops kill 187 terrorists. NAB wanted Habu Dogo 262 others. So Nigerians await the arrest of 3G Bello, which has been on for a while now, particularly in recent times. We have seen bounty being placed on him and what have you. But hopefully this arrest now, added to the one we hope will happen with 3G Bello in a distant time, will bring some peace, calm, and stability to these states where farmers in particular have been under siege and lives have been taken in ways that are very wanton. All right, let's take you to the Sunday Telegraph, which also, by the way, has quite a number of stories. The Sunday Telegraph. Above the nameplate with a picture of Seyi Makinde, governor of Oyo State. Makinde 2027 elections, APC versus Nigerians. Makinde 2027 elections, APC versus Nigerians. Nigeria's Badnoch becomes first black woman to lead UK Conservative Party. Yes, the Conservative Party. She's the first black woman, not the first woman, but the first black woman to lead the United Kingdom's Conservative Party. While some are saying, well, congratulations, Ms. Badnoch. Others are saying, well, hold on, how about those remarks you made the other time? I'm sure we'll have to move past it at some point, particularly depending on what kind of leadership she provides going forward, especially as it has to do with Africa-UK relations. What's the star story here? That one has a picture of Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Rivers, lawyers fought FHC overruling on federal allocation. Rivers, lawyers fought FHC overruling on federal allocation. Says it contradicts 2004 Supreme Court judgment on FG versus Lagos. Akuma SAN, allocation from Abuja different from state affairs. Governors, leaders seek political solution. I would not sort that already. What do you call the peace? Well, hopefully that's still peace that had been brokered by the president when he intervened in this issue very many months ago. So what more political solution can be found at this point in time? Minister of FCT has unequivocally, on a repeated scale, said that Mr. Fubara is ungrateful, that he can't tolerate ungrateful people. But questions are now being asked, for example, what exactly is he ungrateful about? All right, so we've seen that back and forth between both of them, but in all, as we know, it is the Rivers people who are taking the brunt as it stands right now. LG poll OT02 Al-Makura Hill exercise in states. PDP kicks alleges hijack of materials in Cross River. NCOS, we didn't detain minors in adult custodial centers. On page 5, that's where you find those details. NCOS, we didn't detain minors in adult custodial centers. FG releases funds for NASU retirees. So are they going to go back to work tomorrow? We'll find out on page 6 of today's issue of the Sunday Telegraph. Death toll rises to 20 in Awka as suspected cultists kill 3 brothers. Death toll rises to 20 in Awka as suspected cultists kill 3 brothers. Diplomats, how Trump-Harris victory will affect Nigeria, Africa. 2 writers accompany that headline. Keshi Akinterewa Ogunsanwo project likely scenarios of candidates' victories. U.S. warns Russia against meddling in election campaigns. One would have thought this argument back and forth about Russia's interference in American politics ended in 2016, but 8 years down the line, it has shown clearly that hasn't been quite the case. All right, but it turns out that's the much we are bringing you from the Sunday Telegraph this morning. Our next paper is the Sunday Tribune. All right, let's see what the Tribune has got for us quickly. We'll begin with the star story in front of the Tribune newspaper. 2027 elections, contests between APC Nigerians. 2027 elections, contests between APC Nigerians. That's according to Governor Makinde of Oyo State. Then there's a rider with that story. Adeleke calls for unity in Southwest PDP. That unity probably should be extended to the national leadership of the PAP because that has been missing for quite a long time. All right, let's look at something a bit further down on the front page of the Sunday Tribune this morning. All right, it says, end bad governance. Northern Coalition Kwankwaso condemned detention of minors. Umahi stakeholders meet today in Lagos over Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. Withhold Rivers allocation. Expect dire consequences. INC blows halt over court judgment. This is quite a concerning situation here, but hopefully it is handled in the best way possible. All right, and then let's also see one here that says major health crisis looms with 3 riders. Government hospitals grossly short-staffed. Doctors, nurses overworked as gap in doctor-patient ratio widens. Power went off 15 times during vein tumor operation. Neurosurgeon, you know what that means. Now there's brain, there's a vein tumor operation, and then power goes off 15 times in the middle of that very sensitive and critical medical procedure. So that is very concerning. But then let's go take a look at some headlines above the nameplate quickly before we tie it up on the front page of the Sunday Tribune. Nigerian professors, poorest paid in the world, earn about $300 per month. 2 riders here. Other categories of lecturers earn less. Salary stagnant since 2009, which means if they've not seen or been given upward review since 2009, I mean, if that report is anything to go by, it means for 15 years, someone has been receiving the same salary, probably in the same institution. So that's quite is a disturbing case. All right. And then one here with a picture of President Bola Tinubu reads, attacks reform bills. Asomben Yakasai back presidency urge NAS to pass bills. Northern Forum commends Tinubu for rejecting next decision. All right, those are the stories from the Sunday Tribune. But then let's look at one finally on the foot of it. It says children in care homes suffer sexual abuse, child labor, risk PTSD, researchers claim. All right. Okay, that's that, by the way. But let's see the Sunday Vanguard. Yes, that's what we're going to next. Sunday Vanguard. Under dispensing petrol, frustration, anger as fuel stations increase hardship. Cheating PMS outlets, 10 signs to watch out for. Regulator reads Riot Act, guess for the opt-in time. Dangote Refinery dismisses allegation of high price. Some marketers are now claiming that Dangote sells for 1,028 naira to the liter, but now we understand the refinery is denying that claim. On the right corner of the front page of Sunday Vanguard, Spurs gave me soft skills to operate in the boardroom. Omola Yole. Governor Ortiz LP loses as ZLP sweeps a bid council poll. Governor Ortiz LP loses as ZLP sweeps a bid council poll. Most wanted terrorist Dogo captured. Coastal Road. Umahi stakeholders meet today in Lagos. Incidentally, that story is replicated across papers. Craziest thing I've ever done for love. Tiwa Savage. Her picture is right in front of the front page of the Sunday Vanguard. Nigerian born Kemi Badnoch emerges leader of UK Conservative Party. What more do we have? Withheld salaries. FG pay NASU members on page 28. That's where you find those details. 2027 poll is between APC and Nigerians. Makinde. Fani Kayode, time to reconsider our ties with Israel. You find an article on page 27 of the Sunday Vanguard. All right, this morning. Incidentally, those are the papers that we have for you. We do hope you take our time today, read up details for yourself, and stay ahead of the news. We'll take a quick break now. We'll return shortly with the rest of the program. Do stay with us. Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television. Just to mention quickly that there's now some sort of debates between the North and the South, particularly the Southwest, saying that on the one hand, the North is saying that the appointments, especially into security-sensitive positions by President Bola Tinubu, have been very lopsided. In other words, he has been more tilted towards the Southwest in his appointments in this regard. The Southwest, on the other hand, is saying that they've not been favorably considered with regards to these appointments. However, the everyday Nigerian believes that it should be a case of due process, competence, and patriotism. So if these three elements, as important as they are in place, I mean, everybody's treated fairly, nothing else should matter. But this is not the first time Nigerians will have a debate such as this. Even in the days of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, we saw this happen, we saw this play out. We saw it even during the time of former Presidents Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. The 8 years of former President Muhammadu Buhari were definitely not different. In fact, I think there was more vehemence in the debate at that time than we have seen so far in the second year of President Bola Tinubu's administration. But in all, if we are patriotic enough, we all will do the right thing in the overall interest of Nigeria and indeed Nigerians. That's our program for you this Sunday. I'm Uyag Mofugbe. Thank you for watching. On behalf of the entire team here in Abuja, Nigeria, we'll see you again.